take me through a time you had a creative project and how you dealt with a challenge?
Ooh. I mean, writing a book was pretty challenging. I had I had I had got the contract and then COVID hit, so it was actually a good thing because like I stopped traveling and running workshops and things like that. So it was a lot of time at home. And originally the contract was like, yeah, cool, like manuscript deliver in October, I think, September, October. And then I signed the contract and they're like, great, thanks for that. Like, actually, can we change the date? Like, good to go, but like, can we actually get it in July or something? So I think I had about 3 or 4 months. And so that was for me a real like discipline challenge. I think I'm a very creative person that likes to bounce between recording podcast and speaking gigs and business coaching, like all these different like creative outlets. But it was like having to really
Yeah.
zone in and
Yeah.
just be like, and it was so I actually became quite like like
Regimented.
regimented of
Yeah.
just being like I would wake up at like 4 in the morning. I would meditate, I would read a little bit, and then I would start writing. And like, to be fair, I'd crash about 3 in the afternoon,
Yeah.
and then I'd go for a walk and just get off screens and stuff like that. But yeah, just like black coffee, just like out like would buy lunch. He was living with a friend in Sydney at the time, and so I'd just go for a walk and get lunch, and so just really tried to minimize as many other decisions or thinking that I had to do in the day,
Yeah.
and just like hone in and did that for like 3 months. And the last month was like next level, was just like, but yeah,
Are
that's,
you deadline driven? Is that like a
yeah, I
yeah,
work better with a deadline
yeah.
because it definitely can. I think there's uh, there's some sort of law where it talks about how things get done in the time that you allow. And I think if you don't have a deadline, it's like, when you do have the deadline, it's like right up until 24 hours. And you're just like, okay, cool, now I'll get it done. And you realize you've had 6 months and you've done the majority of it in the last 24
Yeah,
hours.
yeah, the sprint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Um, Tell me about your meditation practice.
Yeah, well, I started with Dr. Joe Dispenza,
Okay.
actually. Funny story is, I think I must have known that meditation. I had this feeling that it would be good for me and that I should start, right? And then I found a local meditation like class at once a week, and I put it in my diary as a reoccurring event. I was like, I'm gonna go to this. I think it was like Friday lunchtime or something.
I
And
was
I was,
with other people.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was like a group
Okay.
meditation at some center, and I was like, I'm gonna go. I think it was in my diary for about 2 years, and I never went. But it was like this thing. I was like, I'm just gonna get accountable. And then I was in a bookshop one day, and I saw this book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I picked it up, and I was like, something that gets drawn to you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I remember, to be fair, I looked at the back and there was a picture of this, middle-aged white man, and I was like, I'm not reading that. Like, I like to find people of color or just different authors, like, don't need to give my money to this guy. And then I put it back, did a lap of the shop, and was like, there's something about this book. Put it on my bedside table and was finishing another book, and then I picked it up one day and was like, I couldn't put it down. I read
Mm.
it the quickest I've probably ever read a book, and it was just understanding the science behind meditation, explaining that. And I started just like I read the book, and then he gave meditations at the end, and they were 90 minutes. And there's a part at the end of the book, where it's like, hey, you're going to start the practice now. And he's really big on explaining stuff so that you can put it into action.
So you understand before you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're more likely to make a habit and to stick at it if you understand it, which I
Mm.
think, I don't know if that's for everyone, but it definitely helped me. Like, I
Yeah.
was like, I get the theory of it, like,
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And then I just started meditating, like, doing these meditations. I was doing them twice a day, like morning and night.
Oh wow.
So it was like 3 hours. And yeah, I think I'll lock onto things. And then I'm not doing 3 hours of meditation every day now, but Yeah, just so it's guided meditation. Sometimes there's just ones where it's like, how did you go today and what could you do better tomorrow? And, like, yeah, dream into your future. And then there's, yeah, a lot of like going into the unknown and creating from the quantum field and infinite possibilities. And
Okay.
yeah.
How did that change your practice or your like creativeness
Well, it
or your approach?
it changed from, I think, when I even starting my business, I used to do a lot of like practical like strategy
Mm.
of like this is how to build a website, how to start a side hustle, all these things. And I nearly burnt out after about 2 years, and just like taking so much advice and hustling, right? And when I found meditation, I started going to you know this, I don't know, like unknown space that's beyond space and time, and tapping into inspiration. That I don't know, like just ideas can come to me, and that sometimes I wake up at 3 in the morning and do a meditation, and then write out like a blog post in my notes section, and
Okay.
things like that. So it it's a more sustainable practice than hustling, and just being
Yeah.
guided by, yeah, like a spirit, or that inspiration, the creative imagination that is so accessible. It's really hard to get out of your practical thinking and into this imagination creative space. But um yeah, inspiration comes in ways that you least expected, and
Mm-hmm.
then being able to yeah, like hear them or see them and be inspired by them, and then be like, all right, now I apply my structure.
Yeah.
Mm.
Can you take me through the like startup process and the hustle, like the starting your business?
Yeah, how I started.
Yeah, take me
Yeah.
through it.
Well, I was working as a youth worker for years, actually. I wanted to. I worked with kids at risk. I worked with community. I worked
Where at?
up in Queensland.
Okay.
Yeah, so I started in schools, and then flexi schools, and then yeah, all over. Worked with AIM, the
Okay.
mentoring guys, and
What like drew you to that work originally?
um, good question. I don't know. I think like something about mentoring, I think, or
Mm.
walking alongside people, and meeting them where they're at. When you said that, actually a memory came to mind. My mum is very social justice orientated, and
Okay.
she was always running schemes and programs of helping the people who needed it most. So we would, it was not unusual for us to go to a picnic in the park barbecue with newly arrived refugees, or, you know,
Like that
um,
was your growing up
yeah,
sort of, yeah.
yeah, just really
Mm.
relationships, I guess, with people. So I worked, yeah, in schools and writing programs, and then eventually ended up advising government on best practice for youth services, really. And I thought it was like the dream job. Like,
Mm.
I'm gonna, I'm in this corporate setting, and I have a travel allowance, and like
Okay.
all these things. And then just realized it was like red tape, and
Yeah.
was like, there nothing changes in this building, and this is not where I am best, of service to people who need, youth services.
Yeah.
So I left that job. Well, I actually cut back to 4 days a week, and I was again just in that kind of burnout phase, and started. I had a career coach who kind of helped me to get to that point, and then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna do my own business, because I think it was around the time of like Tim Ferriss and Tony Robbins, and
Okay.
like there's a lot of like
Yeah.
4-hour work week startup entrepreneurs, like Uber was happening, all these things. And I remember hearing about entrepreneurship
Mm-hmm.
and being like, that's me.
What drew you to that?
I read this thing that was like, entrepreneurs are, they will come up with lots of different ideas, act really quickly, like kind of not follow the rules, can handle risk taking. And I think that was the thing that I was like, yeah, that's how I like to work. Like, I don't like sitting in this bureaucracy of red tape and, slow moving. I like to come up with ideas and action them. And this is why I'm not a good employee. And so I think that led me to realize also that this kind of trend of startups and entrepreneurship was going to take off. And I was like, this is the next generation of people who are actually questioning the 9 to 5 and going, why do we wish our lives away 5 days a week for these jobs that we just do to pay the bills so that we can live our life 2 days a week? And I think there's going to be creative people who are actually, we're the generation that didn't believe that we just had to do what needs to get done and pull up your boots and, go on this predictable trajectory of go to school, go to university, get a job, buy a house.
The goal is the job.
Yeah. Have the kids settle down, make enough money to retire. Like, that story we started going, hang on, there's got to be more.
Yeah.
And I think I was having that crisis as well. So I was like, if I'm feeling this, other people are feeling it. And I started meeting a lot of really creative people who were really successful in their creative industries, but then were working these jobs and the creative was a side hustle because they never believed they could make money off being creative. And so I started helping a bunch of them, just like having coffee and giving advice and, helping out, kind of, just I was like, yeah, you can do that. Let's do it. And
what sort of helping?
Well, one guy was a photographer. He's quite a great photographer. His name is Trent Mitchell. And he I think he'd self-published a book and he wanted to get it into bookshops. And so I said, I can get them into bookshops for you. And I think he used to just pay me like $20 an hour or something. And I'd be on the train commuting to my 9 to 5. And I would just pitch his book into bookshops. And then I would just say, yep, send this many to, like, and it worked. It just somehow I was like, yeah. And he was so stoked. And I think that's when I realized I'm really good at seeing an end goal or an idea and then believing in it and then working backwards to take the steps to make that goal a reality.
Is there a formula for that, or is it you figure out the steps each time or you can see them?
Yeah, I think it depends on the goal, but I think it's often ideas and goals and dreams that we have. It's so easy to go, oh, one day I wish I could, and that we put these goals and dreams and our dream life into this future, what if scenario. And I think a lot of people don't realize that you go, okay, well, what if it was now? What if we started working now? And one of my favorite quotes is like, a year from now, you'll wish you started today. And I think we underestimate how quickly a dream can come to life when you actually make a plan. So it's like first believing in that goal and saying, yeah, I could have that. What if I actually didn't put it in this 10-year plan and actually brought it into this 1-year plan? And then I did one thing every day for the next 365 days. That's 365 things that you do. And then a year from now, you're, living the dream.
How did that become the business? And how did that become like your life?
Yeah. I went to this coach that I had and said, I want to help go out on my own. Kind of, I guess it was consulting at the beginning. And I remember we just had a few phone calls and I just said, and she'd worked with me for a few years and I'd said, she knew my skill sets and she was like, you're really good at this. And this is, what you're naturally, all of these things that we've been talking about. And she did my LinkedIn profile.
Okay.
Yeah, for LinkedIn's coming back. But it was, early adapter to LinkedIn.
Okay.
And I think that was she helped me to go believe in those skills and then package them up. And so the package was Startup Creative, and that was your go-to source for straight up business advice. And my goal was just to go, well, there's all these creative people, they don't have the business skill sets. I don't have them necessarily, but I know how to go out and find them, to digest them, and then to translate them for a creative into really easy, practical things that they can do. And yeah, and so I'm gonna do that. I was reading all these business books, I was, all this stuff. And so I started making, business advice that was, just beautiful to look at. It wasn't ugly government documents that were really, full of lingo and hard, the kind of documents you pick up and go, I don't understand this, therefore it's not for me, therefore I can't start a business. Like, I'll never make money doing what I love. So I was like, well, I'm gonna close that, gap and make it digestible. And so I started out with a 6-week course that I went and sold to some local councils who had money to spend on youth services. Like, just went to what I knew. Excuse me. And I said, look, I think the next generation is going to be this. And also, like, a lot of people haven't disengaged from higher learning because they're not black and white book thinkers. So there's a lot of creative people who are going to start businesses. Obviously, pitched it in as it's good for, to promote small businesses in a local council area. It's good to engage people in government, programs. And so I said, let's run a course on how to turn your passion into a business, and wrote a 6-week program. And they said, yep, cool, come and run it for us. And then I did that. Once one person said yes, I just went to a few different ones and said, can you why don't you guys do this as well? So it started out as a 6-week course that was just contracting and facilitating, and then eventually I got a bit sick of waiting for the government person to sign off on what I thought would be really useful for young people. And so I started going like direct to my client and just being like, all right, I'm just going to sell one-on-one coaching. And then I started a magazine, a podcast, kind of got on Instagram pretty early, and yeah, started using successful stories to help inspire other people that business isn't a one one size fits all. Like, there's so many different ways that people have started successful businesses from really unconventional ways, and yeah, have made it work. And so use that kind of storytelling to inspire people, and then run workshops and coaching and stuff to teach people.
Was there someone that you saw in like other industries or other spaces that you were like, ooh, I see you doing that and I'm aspiring to be that for this space? Or were you sort of building like the tracks as you were going forward?
Well, I didn't see many people doing, creative business advice, like I did not in Australia. Like, there was, I think what I probably pulled on more than anything was like really cool brands popping up, like just cool, like brands that started to have, businesses that started to have cool branding.
Tell me more.
Then we're like, there was like Glossier was one of them, which is like it's like a skincare place in New York, but they did, like they just like this cult branding that kind of took off, and people would line up around the door because they had this really cool like concept store. And yeah, who else? Like, I mean, early days we interviewed Uber, and I remember when their head of marketing was on the Gold Coast, which is where I was living at the time. And like they did a collab with Messina where you could get Messina delivered in an Uber.
That.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember when that first happened.
Like that felt wild behavior, right? That was when Uber was just trying to crack the market, and the government made them illegal because the taxi drivers were so upset, And so just stuff like stuff that was, breaking the mold of what it meant to be a business. And yeah, like growing communities,
Mm.
really. Um, yeah, so I was kind of pulling on a lot of different people who are doing cool things in that space, I think.
Yeah. How has your brand, Startup Creative, changed since you started it to now? Like, what's been the evolution of the
Yeah.
brand from a like imagery point of view, but also like all of the things that go into that?
Yeah. Um, well, I made my first logo on Word document, and
Okay.
it was this kind of like paintbrush looking font, and it just said startup, and then I drew a line with the actual paintbrush feature, and then the creative, and then like did a circle around it, and then I cropped it.
Logo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cropped it, exported it, and then it was back in the day where you couldn't even do like export as a JPEG. It was like you had to go on the internet to find a way well, my skill set at the time was go and find a converter from like PDF to JPEG. And so that was how I started. It was very startup. Like I just need to get in the game and get out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I felt a big urgency of like excitement.
Were you like worried about it not being polished, or it was like, no, I just need to be out there and be,
Yeah.
this is what it is. I'm going to play in the space.
Yeah, I think, well, my brand was very black and white at the beginning, and like little pops. That's also like, it's funny because when you start a business that is similar, well, that you're the face of and the center of, it's often your own style, right? And at the time I was living on the Gold Coast, and I wore a lot of black and white and linen, and
Okay.
I had long hair that I used to get chemically straightened.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was very Gold Coast clean linen, like, black and white, very crisp, and flat lays, and polished, which really stood out at the time because people were using bad filters on Instagram, and so like having a clean brand that was crisp, and little pops of subtle color and things like that, was kind of, yeah, like that kind of stood out. I think, I shaved my head after my book launched. I just had this feeling of being like, great, 7 year cycle. It was 7 years in my business, and my book came out, and I just like when it had a COVID, in the middle of COVID, it was like there was one of those moments where it's like lockdown ended, and and so I just went to the hairdresser and was like, take it all off, and bleached it. And so I think as my personal style has evolved too, I've gotten like a lot more color, and yeah, boldness to it. Like I used to, I think I was quite conservative when I started, wanting to make sure I looked professional, but I think I was also younger. Like I was 23 or 4 when I started. And so I think I had the imposter syndrome of, people won't take me seriously. And so I think I tried to look a little bit more professional, whereas nowadays I'm like, I've been doing this for 12 years. Like, here's my reputation.
Yeah,
Here's
my resume is set.
Yeah.
Like, you can.
And this is my brand. And if it's not for you, then that's okay.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Cool. How have you made room for collaboration within your work, and like what are the rules for bringing people in?
Yeah. Well, I think that was another really early thing that I learnt about business, is that working with people that align to your values and your style, and so being prepared to say no to things that don't fit, and yeah, being really clear about the aesthetic, the tone of voice, like I never, if, it's really early things, like over the years, if I'm hosting a workshop, I don't want to be in a corporate boardroom. I'm going to go and hire town hall. Like I remember my first workshop ever was like this hall, like local council hall, but it overlooked the ocean. And I was
Okay.
like, yeah, that's where we're doing it. So there's nice views of the throughout the day. It doesn't feel like this,
You're finding the environment that
yeah,
fits what you want to
yeah.
achieve.
And it was like everything, the brand was, all the values of like, this isn't a traditional business
Mm.
school, this is creative business school.
Mhm.
So all of those decisions, which then eventually led to the people that you work with, and collaboration honestly made my business. Like I have collaborated from day one with writers for my blog and my magazine, and interviews, collaborating, like speaking on other people's panels, running workshops with other people, so there was a group of a lot of creative women actually when I first started. We found each other on Instagram, and we were all kind of starting around the same time. And they would write for my magazine, or I'd put an ad in the magazine. They'd put me on on their panel for an event, and
Okay.
so it was like, yeah, just building each other. We're all talking to the same audience of creative entrepreneurs, but all offering different things that they needed.
Mm.
And so it was, from the get go. And then I think sharing other people's stories and being really generous with how do we, tell these stories, um, was like game changer, because we, you know, started with a print magazine and then told just like, the guy who ran the coffee shop story. And then that eventually led to like Uber and, yeah, Who Gives a Crap and Zoe Foster Blake and like all of these kind of bigger names,
Mm.
um, that, yeah, trusted us with their stories.
How did you go about getting in the door in those spaces?
Yeah, who you know,
Yeah.
the introductions really.
Hmm.
I think it was an old coaching client who did some work for Zoe Foster Blake, who did an intro, and um, yeah, so it was networking and relationship building. Like even 12 years on, there's still people who maybe I worked with, or like people who follow. I've been following you since the beginning, and um, then they go, oh yeah, I I've got an opportunity. Would you come in and do a talk? Or I'd like to get some business coaching. I've just left my job. Or
Mm.
yeah, so those relationships and getting networking and being part of building a community that people felt like they were a part of, and then sharing, yeah, go expanding that to other people's communities.
Is
Yeah.
there a part of your work that drains your energy, and is there a part that lifts you up and keeps you wanting
Yeah.
more?
Yeah, sometimes getting too bogged down in the details of like, like yeah, note taking and things like that, or like documenting and the back end kind of side of things can be a little bit draining. But I love, yeah, conversations. I love
Mm.
being on stage. I love hosting podcasts. I love when being with people. I think I'm very extroverted, and sometimes I forget how extroverted I am, and like I'm working from home, and coming up with ideas and pitching and writing and in meetings, and then go to a social gathering and be like, I'm really, I'm tired. I don't know where I should go, and they get there and I'm like, wow, I haven't seen anyone all week. I've been on my computer, like, so yeah, that human connection and stories. Like my favorite thing is when someone is like, I've got this idea and I have no idea where to start, and then we have a conversation that's like, yeah, what about this, and we could
Mm.
do that, and like, have you thought of this, and they go, and then they go, I've done it and it's working.
When you're working with someone one on one like that, are you asking more questions or offering more solutions?
I ask a lot of questions. I think that's because often people also have the answers, and they know, it's just that they need feedback and clarity, and then they also need, self-belief.
Mm.
And so a lot of questions, and then obviously they're paying for my advice, so I've got to give them some practical tips. But I think I used to be very like, I need to come in and solve this for people, and that I needed to prove my worth as a business coach. And so I'm going to come in and just talk at you and give you everything that I know, which actually can have, the opposite effect,
Yeah.
in that people go, oh, I'm actually really overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like, and they can leave not taking action because you've given them too much information. And I think again, back to like my brand is, I like to listen and be intuitive with
Mm.
people about what they need as well. So
Was there a moment that you like clicked on that learning?
I mean, through meditation,
Yeah.
really, because I think I remember there was a client once, and she came to me with this idea, and I had done all of this preparation and all of this, tips on how made the plan as to how you were going to get the idea live. And we spent a whole hour on a coaching session, and going through, and I think it was on Zoom, and I was a bit like, I didn't take enough time to check in and see whether it was, sinking in and computing, and that she was inspired by it. Because you can tell, right?
Mm-hmm.
If someone's like, cool, thanks for the advice, and they're just not listening because it just is not connecting with their actual passion.
Mm.
And then right at the end of the session, she said something like, and I think I said something like, what do you think about that? Or how, does that all make sense? And she was like, yeah, but I think I want to go in this direction. And it was so different. And in that moment, I was like, oh my God, like I did not check in with this. But, and now when I'm coaching, I'm like, is this making sense? And I'll make sure I'm like trying to pick up on, physical clues to make sure the person's inspired. And that, example, we just started from the beginning. I was like, you don't need to pay me for another hour. Just like, I want you to walk away with something that lights you up. And so we just started, we like, scrap that, let's go. We're going to start from this. And I had no preparation for where we're going. And I just had to listen and intuit. And I think that's when I started being like, oh, if someone's not giving cues of excitement and inspiration and eager to get started, then it doesn't matter how good the plan is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. How did that lead you into writing a book?
I was running the podcast and a blog, and to be honest, I was doing it for 7 years, and I was running a lot of workshops called How to Actually Start Your Business. I think it was called, for like General Assembly, and there was a lot of like, workshops and places around, and I was kind of going in and guest speaking this, and everyone's, there's a lot of interest, like, pre-COVID, where 300 people would turn up for a workshop, and so I'd be running that like probably like,
How do you prep for a workshop like that? Actually, before we go into the book.
Yeah, I mean, that's my favorite place to be, in front of.
Tell me more. Why?
Because I was just really a PowerPoint presentation, but I think I had 7 years, been doing business for 5 years, and I just coach one-on-one people all, like, literally around the world. Like, it would blow my mind that people would come to me and say, from countries that English isn't even their first language, and they would be like, can I, found you on the internet, come for it. And I remember just being like, how did you find me? Like, anyway, so I was pretty confident in what I was doing was working, and it was, and I was good at it. So, yeah, I had kind of created this formula, which isn't really anything new. It's like, what's your idea? Who wants it? Are they willing to pay for it? What problem are they solving? Are you solving, or what value are you adding to somebody's life? And then go out and test it and make sure that it works, and that people that you think want to buy it are actually prepared to buy it. And then that's kind of your validation. And then once you've validated it, then build a brand
Mm.
because people are going to buy into the brand, and then you market it.
In that formula,
Mm.
with the like problem part, can people be solving more than one problem with an idea, or is it
Mm.
a a problem should be a singular focus?
Yeah, I mean, I think both, because sometimes people, for example, Who Gives a Crap is a really good example. It's a
Mm-hmm.
toilet paper brand. It's a social enterprise. They have really fun branding, color. They individually wrap their toilet paper rolls, but it's this ethical brand, and it's this really bold, and they just sell toilet paper, and they sell a lot of it, and you can get subscriptions. But then, like Startup Creative, for example, is in like, my kind of brand pillars that I created was like inspiration, education, and growth. So we inspire people to say you can do it, believe in your, here's some inspiration, but then here's how to do it, and then here's how to stay in the game and keep doing it and grow,
Mm.
so be sustainable. So I think that, yeah, sometimes you can be providing one singular problem, and then other times you can be, like just a value add, or for somebody's life, like art and jewelry and things like that can be really not even a problem. It's just that it's a value add that somebody wants to help express who they are into the world.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, take me back through your prep for a workshop
Yeah.
of that scale.
That's good. Yeah. So yeah, I would just have this PowerPoint, and I just get up in front of people and then take questions, and it was really, yeah, just a step by step.
Mm.
I think my skill set, what I realized was that I could talk and present business advice in a relatable way. So I tried really hard not to use terminology or lingo or things. And if I did, then I would stop and explain it, and I would tell real life examples, and just, yeah, give it that way. But like for me, by that point where that many people were turning up, I didn't really prep because I had done it so many times that I knew it inside out, and I felt really confident in the advice, and I always got really good feedback. And then I was actually prepared. Like I was so over giving straight up business advice
Mm.
because I'd been doing it for so long. And I was like, I want a new topic or something, And it was around then that's when the book deal came,
Yeah, cool. Okay.
because I think about it now and I'm like, yeah, by the time the book deal came, I was ready with an outline
Mm.
because I had done it so many times.
How different was the book end product or end version of the book from the original outline?
Yeah, not too much difference.
Mm.
Like the title changed. I think it's called How to Start a Side Hustle, but it originally was something along the lines of like how to, I don't know, start a business. It was something, yeah, not as catchy.
Mm.
Maybe it's just because I've said it so many times now. But there was like, another part of writing a book with a publisher is the death to your ego. When you think that, you've been working for yourself and you've got this community of people that think you're great, and then you go to a publisher and they're like, here's some feedback, and you're like, but everyone tells me I'm great.
Yeah, okay.
But also made me a better writer. But I've obviously, through meditation and my personal journey, and also just seeing with coaching clients, is that there's an element of having a plan and then having the mindset to execute the plan.
Okay.
Because the mind will say you can't do this, or it's not working, or somebody else is doing it better than you. So I always believe that you need both of those things. Here's how to start a side hustle, and then here's how to, have the mindset of someone who believes, stays the course.
Yeah.
And so I weaved a lot of mindset tips, because I was like, you're going to feel like this. Here's the at this point, it's probably going to feel like this. And you might, do this, but here's a mindset hack. And so almost every chapter had a mindset hack. And then when my first draft came back from the publisher, they were like, yeah, we cut all the mindset hacks.
Okay.
And I was like I was so proud of them. I was like, this
Yeah.
is why this book is different, because people will understand that I know what it feels like,
Yeah.
or that I know how they're
Was
feeling.
was that something? So you then went into fight for those, or was it a kill your darlings moment?
Yeah, well, somebody actually gave me that advice and said, don't, take everything that they say. You don't have to accept all of it. You can fight back. But the reasoning they gave was it's a small book, and I think it was about 25,000 words, and I think I had submitted about 40,000 words.
Okay.
And so they were like, we need to get it down, and the word count down. It's called How to Start a Side Hustle. We just need to stay on how to start a side hustle. Like these things that, that's another book, the
Interesting.
mindset stuff,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of motivational mindset stuff out there. Which like, I think I got it. And I was like, and I think about that now when I write. I'm like, am I staying to the point?
Yeah.
Or am I, because, and I don't know whether,
Are
how
you serving the idea?
yeah, you're saying it's how to start a side hustle, so just get me to that point. If I want motivation tips, I'm going to go and pick up a motivation book, and I think as I read now, whether it's my own stuff or other people's stuff, and I don't know whether you feel like this as well, but I think maybe our attention spans are getting worse, but sometimes you can see a side tangent in a piece of writing, and you get distracted from where the story was going, and it's like, oh, I was really enjoying this, and that side piece, yeah, maybe it was funny, or it was a fun fact, or something, but I picked up this article because you promised to get me from here to there. And so I think about that now too, of being like, sometimes writing is just give them what you promised, and make sure there's not too many side tangents that will distract people.
Do you when you're editing your own work and when you're writing, do you write and then edit, or are you editing as you go?
I learned to just write and then edit, because it's actually, that was advice was given to me when I was writing my book, and I realized how much it works, which is that you just need to get something out. Because when I was then again, there's back to that kind of discipline from the book, was every day was like a chapter. So it was like, just get the basics of this chapter out, and then and kind of like a word count. So it was just like, great. And so I'd be writing up how many words I was at, and how many, where the rough word count was. So then going back and looking at it in hindsight, because if you, in my experience, if I edit too much in the go, I'm overthinking it, and I'm not trying to say. So I'm like, go and say what you're trying to say, and then go and tidy it up, make it more interesting. And even when I'm writing a Substack, there'll be a point, right, where I'm about to hit publish, but like, I'm like, nah, I need to go and step away and do something else, or sit in the sun with a coffee for a hot second, or do something different, and then come back and give it fresh eyes before I hit send.
Within like the journey of startup creative and like your own journey, what are the sort of big changes you've seen in the way you've had to market to find a client base and audience?
Yeah, I mean, it's changing still so much. I mean, I got on Instagram in 2014, so that was pretty, hashtags were a thing that helped people find you, like it was very chronological order. It was no algorithm. It was before it sold, right? So it was very easy to find your audience and to speak to them. And I think as the markets have gotten saturated, it's gotten noisier. And also, like what I was saying before, is setting out to build a beautiful brand with nice colors and imagery and style and fun tone. That was like a point of difference when I started. And nowadays, I haven't tried this, but I'm sure AI could build you a beautiful website in probably 5 minutes. And yeah, it can, and I think that beautiful brand used to be like, oh, this, it looks different, it stands out, and now everyone can look the same or have that same quality, and uh, it's less of a like a I guess a trust builder. I guess I think sometimes you used to be like, oh yeah, this brand looks and feels like me.
Like it looks like they've done the work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like they've gone out of their way to create a cool style. Like you can still tell that in brands
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
they've really built something,
Yeah.
that's from a creative mind.
Yeah. And now it's like anyone can have that.
Yeah, and you've
Yeah.
got to dig a little bit deeper to find out. I think it actually eroded trust, because I think that used to be a trust building exercise of being like, this is a cool young creative brand,
Mm.
and now if everyone looks like that, then that's not a determining factor as to whether that brand is your kind of brand or not. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah. Like a brand can suddenly look like anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Mm.
The book launch.
Yeah.
What was that process like in COVID?
Oh yeah, so I was living in Sydney at the time, and then my book was, I think it was the 21st of July, and so it was in those pandemic years where, like 5 people would have test positive, and then all of a sudden it was a cluster red zone, and um your check-ins were like published on the front page of the page. It's like they used to post like, this person went to McDonald's and then they went here and there, and it's like this shaming people.
Yeah, I remember the person going to the mower store, or 4 different mower stores or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's shame. Like, I remember when I got COVID, my sister was like, at least you got it when they stopped publicly shaming people. But I was living in Bondi. I was due to be moving back to Melbourne, and I had a flight, and I arrived in Melbourne, and the day that I arrived, there was a public service announcement that said, Bondi is now a hotspot. Anyone who has been there in the last week has to self-isolate for 2 weeks. And it was the last day, like, it fell on my book launch.
Okay.
So I had planned, I think, about 8 or so different speaking events that I was meant to be at. I was meant to launch at the State Library in Victoria with a big event, and that got cancelled. Had all these bookshops that I was meant to be speaking at. Going up to Queensland where I'm from, and all this stuff, and so it all got cancelled, and I did a live stream on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you get momentum back?
Well, I think I also did quite well, and so in COVID, because I was Instagramming a lot, like I was live streaming a lot, like almost every second day, because our community was creative businesses that were so stressed. So as soon as like COVID started to hit, I was inundated with past clients, new clients who were like, what do I do? I've got to change my whole business model. And so everyone was looking for a business coach. And also then there was a lot of people who were starting side hustles because they were getting really nice cushy payments at home and doing probably 2 hours of work, or while they were working remotely. So yeah, I was really busy, and so I think a lot of people, saw me online, and then once were used to engaging with me like that, because I would do live videos of like, how to mentally, cope, or like advice for people who were pivoting and things like that. So yeah, I did a live stream where a few people like tuned in every hour, and I think I drank a bottle of champagne by myself in my lounge room. Every time everyone would come in, I would just like, a new person would come into the room, I'd be like, cheers. And then and so COVID, it kind of just worked, I guess, better than I thought. And then once things ended, like, I think again I was like, I'm so sick of talking about this book. Surely everyone has heard enough about it by now. But it's just been non-stop. Everyone loves how to start a side hustle talk. So it's been 2021 to, but probably like, I think it's been 5 years. Yeah. and still getting requests for how to start a side hustle talks.
Amazing. When you like first had the like kernel of the idea for the book, did the book feel like the end goal at the time, or did you know that it was like that's another step in that journey?
Yeah. Well, the book deal came to me, funnily enough, because I was at a friend's 30th birthday at her house, and she was having this big, like, Aperol spritz kind of like European style, like long lunch. And I overheard somebody in a conversation chatting about, there was a familiar name, and I kind of turned around and was like, I know that person. And then we got chatting about how we all knew this, had people in common. And then, drinking these Aperol spritzers, I don't really remember what I said, and it ended up being quite a big night. But the next morning, I get an email from someone who was at the party and was like, it was so lovely to meet you. I really loved hearing about what you do with Startup Creative. And I just had a look around your website. Would you be interested in writing a book for us? We're looking for something along these lines. Are you available to meet? And I'm like hungover, being like, oh my God, what did I say? And this is amazing. And so I literally was like, yep, I can meet you. I think it was the next day. And I took like all of these resources that I developed over like ebooks and things and stuff in, and was like, here's my style. And they were like, great, put us together a outline. And so 2 weeks later, I'd submitted a book proposal. I had to figure out what that was. She sent me an example. She was like,
yeah. How do I do this?
Yeah. She's like, here you go. And then I hired, I'm big on getting coaching and support when I don't know. So I hired a writing coach to kind of edit and help. And then submitted it, and got a book deal the end of 2019. Yeah. And then submitted it mid 2020, and then it came out July. So I think it was one of those early dreams where I was like, I'd love to write a book one day, because I love print and I love books, and I have respect for that industry. But one of those things was like, it's such a big goal that you don't know where to start. And I think every time I would be like, okay, I'm going to break this goal down and get to work on it, it never felt clear as to what that idea could be. And I didn't expect, like, I was so over the topic of how to start a side hustle that I was ready to stop talking about it. And it's funny because I hadn't thought about writing a book for a few years, and then when someone said to write this, I'm like, oh, of course I can write that book. Like, it didn't feel like, oh yeah, shit, what have I just signed up for? I was just like, I know how to write that book. Like, so it came at this time that was so perfect. Like, it could not have been more like the universe being like, you're ready to write this book now. It's not gonna be this big, scary, daunting task. Well, it was, but it didn't feel impossible.
How is writing in that way different from creative writing for you?
Word count.
Okay.
And writing, it was actually really terrifying, because I think, we run Substacks and we have our Instagram communities, and it is a bit of an echo chamber of people who believe the same as what you believe, and know you and understand you and been on your journey or whatever, and subscribe to you because they like what you do. Whereas a book it felt very out of control. Like, this is going out, anyone could pick this up, and it felt more permanent, and it felt like, and it was also deep in cancel culture. Was really starting to like ramp up. It's like everyone was at home bored, so they just started trolling people.
Was that something you worried about? Like,
Big time.
being like called out for being, you shouldn't be the person writing this?
Yeah.
It
wasn't I wasn't credible enough. Also, that I could say something that would date badly. Like, I think I included quotes in the book, like inspirational quotes. There's a few like pages of just quotes. And I made a real effort to quote people who had died and didn't have bad, you know, like
Okay.
that couldn't
Yeah, yeah.
like
It was that period.
yeah, that couldn't be outed nowadays. And then, like, yeah, I think I saw someone quote someone the other day, and I was like, oh, that does not age well, because
Yeah.
like
How do you
now,
feel about that now?
what's that?
About the like quotes you chose?
Yeah, good.
Good.
I'm really glad I didn't choose anyone too modern.
Mm.
Like I I chose a lot of, like, you know, there's some proverbs and things like that
Okay.
that um I'm glad I did that. Like, I think that you think about, like, well, I did, all of the different ways that it could go wrong and that people could misinterpret, or that you give bad advice and people go, this is horrible advice, you know, like. So I think it was scary to write a published book that the publisher was going to distribute, and that could fall in the hands of people who really thought that what I had to say was shit,
Mm.
which I haven't received.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's good. It's actually out of print because it's sold out.
Mm.
So yeah, it's been a great success. But creative writing, I think it's funner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Personally,
Mm-hmm.
do you prefer ancient wisdom or modern advice?
Ancient wisdom,
Tell
by
me more.
far. Yeah, I think. Have you come across Joseph Campbell's stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, love. I think that he's. I actually was very religious for a while.
Okay.
I was
What religion?
Catholicism.
Okay.
So I volunteered for the church for 2 years when I was 18 and 19 as a, like, missionary kind
Mm.
of, and was a school chaplain, and then did, yeah. So I was, like, very religious.
Mm.
When I came out gay, that changed a lot of things because I was pretty much excommunicated. But I I left the church and I got really disillusioned with God. And it's probably also why I went so, like, practical business, you know, real life examples, you know, like, I was this God idea of spirituality. I was really off all of it.
Mm.
And Joseph Campbell's stuff actually really helped me to see that the mythologies of religions and spiritualities and neuroscience and, like, all of these things are actually all trying to say the same thing. You know, there is this unknown creative realm that we can tap into, that we've come from and that we'll return to. And yeah, these kind of moral, like, yeah, ways of being and living, and they're all, you can be seen in you know, around the world in
Mm.
so many different ways. So um yeah, I think also probably getting more and more skeptical of gurus, you
Okay.
know,
Yeah. Of modern gurus.
modern
Yeah.
gurus, because yeah, there's yeah, you never know what files they might end up in.
Okay.
And then yeah, just, I don't know, I think coming from, you know, very tightly restricted religion
Mm.
that cut me off from myself for a long time, because I used to confess that I wasn't gay, and because I didn't, pray the gay away of myself,
For
really.
sure.
And so I've never wanted to be a guru. I've never wanted anyone to look up to me. I've wanted to walk alongside people.
Mm.
And I think that anyone that claims to, be a guru, I'm very weary of, because yeah, it's I've probably come close to a few cults in my life, joining
Yeah.
cults.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there parts of Catholicism that you've kept into your like current spiritual practice or your current
Yeah.
skepticism practice? Yeah.
Well, when I was religious in the church, I used to pray for an hour every morning.
Mm.
And so I think that when I started meditate, the discipline to meditate every morning was easy to be like, I know how to do this. I used to get up and pray to God, and now I get up and, feel the expanse of time and space. And so I think that there's like, those kind of rituals and practices like I think the church has got a, you know, like, yeah, incense and, you know, and song and rituals and things um, that translate to, you know, a full moon, you know, animal cards or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, it's
yeah.
like we're all looking for meaning, for little rituals and ways that we can create
Get
meaning.
deeper with
Light
ourselves
candles, you
and
know.
everything. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like a friend passed away recently, and I you know, lit a candle for her, and I'm like, that's
Mm,
we do that when we walk into a church, and mm.
mm. Um, individual growth or
Mm.
communal growth?
Well, I think I'm always striving for individual growth because I'm always trying to self-reflect and
Mm,
make sure that I'm not, you know, falling into any traps of my ego. Um, but I think that that can only happen in communal growth. You know, we're not isolated beings. You have to, and I think that's the other thing I in the church too is very like, you know, I think there's a lot of singularity too that can be like, you know, me and I and stuff. Whereas you can be as holy as, you know, or aim to be as holy as possible, but if you can't go out and be a decent person in the world, then it doesn't matter how strong your religious practice is, you know. So yeah, I think being able to exist, and you know, it's like a lot of relationship counseling and stuff is like, you know, you can relationships bring out all of your shadows and things that need to be worked on, and it's
yeah.
like you can't, it's not meant to be rosy. It's like it's going to be the hardest thing to do, but if you're in a good relationship, you actually peel away the layers and heal yourself through that
Mm.
uncomfortableness. Yeah.